Every major nation has its own long-term goals, but very few choose a specific year and quietly build their entire future strategy around it. China did, and that year is 2027. For more than a decade, the same date has been appearing in China's most important policy documents, modernization plans, and internal reports. At first, it looked like one more milestone in a long list of timelines. But the more you examine China's planning cycle, the clearer it becomes. This year is different. Why 2027? What exactly is China preparing for by then? And why do global research institutions pay such close attention to this deadline? The common answer is usually simple: military modernization. But the truth is far larger. 2027 is the point where several of China's internal transformations, its military, its society, its economy, and its political system, intersect. And when multiple systems shift at the same time in a country of 1.4 billion people, the effects ripple far beyond its borders. This documentary breaks down China's 2027 strategy using only neutral, verifiable research from organizations like the Rand Corporation, CSIS, SIPRI, the World Bank, the IMF, and the United Nations. This is not a prediction. It is not a warning. It is a factual, data-driven explanation of what China intends to change internally and why the world should pay attention. And to understand the story, we must start at the beginning. Not with what China is building, but with why 2027 became the turning point. If you ask most people about China's timelines, they'll mention distant goals: 2035, 2049, even 2050. But 2027 stands out because it is close enough that decisions made today will be visible by then. Let's break down the 4 driving forces behind this date. First, military modernization. China's military reforms are long-term and methodical. Global analysts often explain it through 3 phases: mechanization, informatization, and intelligentization. The first phase was about updating basic equipment. The second phase, where China is now, is about creating a fast, integrated information network across the entire military. The third phase moves into AI-supported decision tools and emerging technologies. According to research from the Rand Corporation, 2027 is set as the year when China expects the information technology phase to be largely complete. In simpler terms, by 2027, China wants a military that talks to itself more efficiently than ever before. Second, industrial and economic restructuring. China's economy is enormous, but its structure is changing fast. Its current 5-year plan ends in 2025, and the years after that begin what China calls deep restructuring, moving from traditional industries toward high-value technology. The Ministry of Industry and Information Technology reports that China wants over 70% of major industries connected to digital systems by 2027. That is a level of automation that will permanently reshape China's workforce. Third, demographics. If you look at China's demographic curve, a pattern jumps out immediately. China is aging at record speed. The median age was around 30 in the year 2000. Today, it is more than 41. By 2030, it may reach 44. The United Nations confirms that China's working-age population is shrinking each year. This demographic pressure is one of the most powerful forces behind China's internal reforms. It affects everything: labor markets, pensions, social stability, even economic ambition. And fourth, political cycles. China views the decade from 2020 to 2030 as a critical period. Leadership speeches repeatedly describe it as a time for consolidating development, strengthening governance, and preparing for long-term national rejuvenation. 2027 is the midpoint in this cycle, It is when the system evaluates whether the decade's goals are on track. Put these four forces together, and 2027 becomes a logical checkpoint, not a mysterious countdown. But to understand how China is preparing for it, we must look at each major transformation area, starting with its military. When discussing China's military development, it is easy to imagine rapid expansion, but the real story is more subtle and in many ways more interesting. China is not focusing on size. China is focusing on efficiency, and efficiency is harder to notice unless you look at the details. Let's start with command and control. Research from CSIS reveals that China has spent the past decade reorganizing how its military communicates. Instead of separate branches working independently, the focus is now on joint operations, integrated systems where information flows without interruption. Think about what that means in practice. Faster decisions, better coordination across different regions, stronger digital infrastructure, more reliable communication networks. These upgrades are essential for any. Now consider maritime awareness. China relies on the world's busiest shipping lanes. It has invested heavily in coastal monitoring, satellite support, and information centers that track maritime activity. Research from the China Maritime Studies Institute shows that these systems are expanding every year, improving China's ability to manage shipping routes and understand activity near its coastline. Then there is research and development. According to SIPRI, China invests more than $60 billion each year in defense-related research. This includes artificial intelligence for decision support, secure information networks, early warning tools, and advanced materials. And yet, none of this tells the full story, because China's military evolution is deeply connected to changes happening in society. To understand one, you must understand the other. So let's shift our focus from the military to the people it ultimately depends on. If you want to know where a country is going, start with who lives in it. And China's demographic story is one of the most dramatic in the world today. 2 decades ago, China was a young nation. Today, it is aging faster than almost any large society ever recorded. This is not just a statistic. It is a structural shift that shapes every policy decision. Here is the picture based on United Nations data. The median age of China's population has crossed 41. By comparison, the median age in the United States is around 38. In Europe, it averages around 44. China is moving toward European levels of aging, but at a far faster pace. A shrinking working-age population means China must rely more on technology, automation, and skilled labor, not sheer numbers. This is why China is investing in robotics, smart manufacturing, and digital services. Urbanization adds another layer to the story. More than 65% of China's population now lives in cities. By 2027, it could reach nearly 70%. Urban growth creates new demand for housing, transportation, employment, and social services. This is also why China leads the world in digital payments. More than 1 billion people use mobile payments daily. China also operates the largest high-speed rail network in history, over 40,000 kilometers. These systems are responses to demographic pressure. They are not luxuries. They are necessities for managing a population undergoing rapid transformation. But demographics and society cannot be understood without looking at the political framework that manages them. China's political priorities often get described in broad terms, but when you look closely, the focus becomes clear. Stability, continuity, predictability, and gradual adjustment. China views the 2020s as a decade to strengthen internal systems. This includes economic restructuring, technology independence, digital governance, and environmental planning. Leadership speeches often use the phrase high-quality development. This is not just a slogan. It reflects a shift away from fast GDP growth towards sustainable, stable progress. Politically, China emphasizes employment creation, long-term economic confidence, and incremental administrative reforms. Digital governance, integrating public services online, is expanding rapidly. Infrastructure remains one of China's biggest strengths. Fiber networks, modern rail, major ports, and renewable energy systems all support long-term political and economic stability. China's political strategy toward 2027 is not about dramatic change. It is about ensuring the system can support the challenges of the next decade: aging, automation, global competition, and technological pressure. And those challenges are most visible in the economy. China's economy sits at nearly $17 trillion, according to IMF estimates. It is huge, but size alone does not tell the story. What matters is the direction. And China's direction is changing. The economic transformation between 2025 and 2027 is driven by four major forces. First, the shift toward advanced manufacturing. China produces over 30% of global manufacturing output, but it wants to move further into high-value sectors: electric vehicles, robotics, aerospace, advanced materials, and renewable energy. Second, the digital economy. China's digital economy represents more than 40% of GDP. This includes e-commerce, cloud services, data centers, and artificial intelligence. Third, technology independence. China currently produces about 16% of the world's semiconductors. Several global research groups estimate that China aims to increase that figure to 25 or even 30% by the late 2020s. Fourth, renewable energy. China produces over 80% of the world's solar panels and a majority of global electric vehicle batteries. Its energy transition is one of the largest in the world. Why does this matter for 2027? Because economic transformation shapes every other area: social stability, research funding, workforce planning, and long-term policy. And that transformation directly influences China's role in global stability. China's strategic environment is defined by trade, logistics, and political partnerships. China and Southeast Asia form one of the world's largest trading relationships. Their trade value exceeded $900 billion in 2024. Analysts expect it to surpass $1.2 trillion by 2027. China also supports infrastructure development across Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. These include ports, fiber networks, industrial zones, and clean energy projects. China's role in global supply chains remains deeply influential. It remains a major center for electronics, machinery, raw materials, and consumer goods. International institutions such as the OECD, European Union, and United Nations closely monitor China's growing economic connectivity. Most assessments highlight long-term cooperation, supply chain resilience, and the need for predictable regional environments. But how do global analysts interpret China's internal transformation? Let's turn to their insights. Every major research organization that studies China agrees on one point: 2027 is a milestone, not a countdown. The Rand Corporation describes it as the completion of a capability development cycle. CSIS points to technology independence, internal governance, and economic restructuring as China's primary priorities. SIPRI highlights China's growing investment in advanced research and development. The Economist Intelligence Unit emphasizes demographic pressure and long-term sustainability as key challenges. These organizations are careful. They avoid speculation. They focus on what the data shows. And the data shows a country undergoing internal transformation, not preparing for external escalation. As China approaches 2027, several indicators reveal its progress. Quarterly research and development investments, semiconductor production capacity, growth in the digital economy, China-ASEAN trade updates, urbanization and population data, renewable energy expansion, infrastructure announcements, and official policy statements from China's ministries. These indicators are open, trackable, and heavily monitored by global analysts. Together, they form a clear picture of how China's internal strategy is moving forward. China's 2027 strategy is not one decision or one policy. It is the intersection of multiple national transformations: military modernization, demographic pressure, political continuity, economic restructuring, technological upgrading, and regional engagement. Understanding these changes helps us understand not just China's future, but the future of global trade, global technology, and global stability. China is preparing for a new chapter in its internal development. And whether the world agrees or disagrees with China's direction, its transformation will shape the international landscape for decades to come. Thank you for listening to this analysis. If you want more deep, long-form explanations, you can continue exploring geopolls. You can also suggest the next topic you would like explained in detail.